"We're finally shutting down your pathetic little venture," my brother Vincent declared in the bankruptcy courtroom, adjusting his tie with the smug satisfaction of a man convinced he had already won. My parents sat in the gallery, nodding in approval, Mom dabbing at her eyes with counterfeit tears, Dad's jaw set like stone in stern judgment. I remained at the defendant's table, silent, letting their lawyer present the fraudulent petition while I waited for the moment that would shatter every assumption they held about me. But then, something unexpected happened. Judge Margaret Holloway suddenly froze mid-sentence. Her pen hovered over the documents, and her eyes widened as she read the name on the filing. Counsel approached the bench. Both lawyers instinctively stepped forward. The judge's voice fell to a sharp whisper, barely audible. "Is this the same Apex Defense Systems that just secured the $189 million Department of Defense contract? The one featured in last week's Wall Street Journal?" Vincent's lawyer muttered something incoherent. Judge Holloway's gaze lifted, locking onto mine with a mixture of disbelief and simmering irritation. "I'll need to review extensive documentation before proceeding," she said. "Because either this petition is the most incompetent filing I've seen in 30 years, or someone is attempting fraud in my courtroom." I felt my brother's confident grin begin to crumble. I had founded Apex Defense Systems 8 years ago in a modest garage with just $3,000 in savings. The Moretti family didn't do garages, we did prestige. My father, Antonio Moretti, owned a chain of luxury car dealerships. Vincent, my older brother, was being groomed to take over. My younger sister Carla had married into old money, spending her days on charity boards and country club committees. And I, Gabriella, the middle child, the disappointment, had abandoned a business degree from Wharton to chase what my father dismissed as playing with electronics and cybersecurity. "That's a job, not a business," he had scoffed. "Get a real career, Gabriella. Work for a bank. Marry someone appropriate. Defense technology might grow, but you're 24, you don't know how to build a company. You'll fail, and then expect us to clean up the mess." "I won't fail," I had told him. Of course, that was what everyone said until they didn't. I left his office and never sought his approval again. The first 5 years were merciless. I survived on ramen and coffee, worked 20-hour days, and learned every corner of the defense contracting world through brutal trial and error. I made mistakes that nearly destroyed me. Bad partnerships, missed deadlines, a contract dispute that drained my meager savings. My family observed from afar, anticipating the collapse they had predicted. "Still playing with computers?" Vincent would sneer at holiday gatherings, dripping with condescension. "Still on your little hobby?" Dad would chime in. "We worry about you," Mom would say, code for "we're embarrassed by you." By the 3rd year, I stopped attending holidays. The energy I had spent defending myself was better devoted to building my company. And build it I did. Apex Defense Systems developed advanced cybersecurity protocols for military communications that could detect and neutralize intrusion attempts in milliseconds. We secured our first government contract in year 4, the second in year 5. By year 7, we had 47 employees, $12 million in annual revenue, and a reputation as one of the most innovative defense tech startups in the country. 6 weeks ago, we landed the $189 million Department of Defense contract, a multi-year deal to implement our technology across 3 military branches. It was the deal that would catapult Apex from a thriving startup into a major defense contractor. The Wall Street Journal ran a feature. Defense industry journals covered our breakthrough technology. Investors suddenly wanted to talk. My family remained oblivious. I had deliberately kept my success private, using my married name Gabriella Santos for all public appearances. Only a handful of relatives had ever stumbled across news about Apex Defense, yet none connected G. Santos, the CEO, with the failure they had always dismissed me as. I liked it that way. Their approval was irrelevant to me now. But apparently, their meddling was something I still had to contend with. The bankruptcy petition appeared 3 weeks after the contract announcement. Vincent had filed it, claiming that Apex Defense Systems owed him $2 million from an investment he supposedly made in the company's 2nd year. The filing accused me of breaching repayment terms, declared the company insolvent, and insisted that creditors needed court intervention to recover their money. Every claim was a fabrication. Vincent had never contributed a single cent to Apex. Beyond mocking me at family gatherings, He had never shown interest in the company. The documents he submitted were forged. Contracts I'd never signed, loan agreements I'd never seen, financial statements that bore no resemblance to reality. It was outright fraud. The kind that, if unchallenged, could cripple a company, entangle assets in prolonged legal battles, scare off investors, and jeopardize government contracts requiring financial soundness. I immediately called my lawyer. "They're trying to drag you into bankruptcy using falsified documents," she said after reviewing the filing. "It's absurdly amateurish. Any forensic audit will expose this fraud in hours. But for now, it creates legal obstacles that could slow your DoD contract rollout." "Which is exactly his point," I said. "Vincent knows something major is happening and wants to sabotage it. How would he even know? My mother's cousin works at a law firm that handles some of our compliance filings. She probably saw something and casually mentioned it at a family gathering. That's all it took." I exhaled. "They don't understand the scope of what I've built. All they know is I landed a government contract, and they felt compelled to interfere." "Why would anyone try to destroy your success?" my lawyer asked. "Because it proves they were wrong about me," I replied. "Some people just can't handle that." The court date was set for Thursday morning. I arrived early, wearing the understated professional style I favored, expensive yet subtle, authoritative without being showy. Patricia Akuno, my lawyer, joined me at the defendant's table, 3 boxes of documents in tow proving Apex's true financial standing. Vincent entered shortly after, accompanied by our parents, staging their arrival for maximum effect. He wore a tailored suit I recognized from dealership promotional photos. Mom dressed in muted tones as if attending a funeral, and Dad exuded the righteous indignation of a patriarch whose family honor had been allegedly violated. They didn't acknowledge me, no glance, no nod. I was the problem to be solved, not a family member to be greeted. Finally, the proceedings began with Vincent's lawyer presenting the petition, outlining the alleged debt, the claimed default, and the supposed need for judicial protection of creditors. "Your Honor," he said, "the defendant has deliberately avoided repayment of a substantial family loan, instead funneling funds into an unprofitable venture that has never proven financial viability." Judge Holloway raised her hand. "Apex Defense Systems, based in Alexandria, Virginia?" "Yes, Your Honor," Vincent's lawyer replied. She typed briefly into her computer, then froze. Suddenly, she called both lawyers to the bench. I watched Vincent's composure crumble in real time as the whispered conference stretched on for several minutes. The color drained from Vincent's lawyer's face. My father leaned forward, straining to hear, his smugness giving way to worry. Finally, Judge Holloway addressed the courtroom in a voice loud enough for all to hear. "We will recess for 30 minutes. During this time, I expect both sides to prepare comprehensive documentation supporting their claims." She fixed Vincent's lawyer with a stare that could have frozen molten steel. "I strongly advise you to verify every document you have submitted. If I uncover fraudulent filings in my courtroom, the consequences will be severe." The gavel fell. Vincent practically bolted to his lawyer's side. "What's happening? What did she say?" he whispered. "I used the recess to organize my evidence." Patricia spread everything across our table. Authentic financial statements showing $12 million in revenue and solid cash reserves. The DoD contract, redacted for security but clearly legitimate. Letters from investors confirming their interest, tax returns, audit reports, 8 years of verified business records, and then the forensic report on Vincent's petition. Document experts had examined his so-called loan agreements and determined they had been generated only 6 days prior. Digital metadata immediately exposed the fraud. The signatures were poorly forged, and the financial figures were completely fabricated. 30 minutes later, Judge Holloway returned. "I've conducted preliminary research during the recess," she announced. "Apex Defense Systems is clearly not a failing enterprise. It is a thriving defense contractor that has just secured one of the largest cybersecurity contracts this fiscal year." She turned toward Vincent's lawyer. "Would you care to explain why a bankruptcy petition was filed against a company with no apparent financial distress?" The lawyer shuffled his papers nervously. "Your Honor, my client submitted documentation regarding a debt documentation that, well, on cursory review, appears inconsistent with the company's public filings and press coverage. Judge Holloway then faced me. Miss Santos, or should I say Miss Moretti, since the petitioner is your brother, would you like to respond to these claims? I rose. Your Honor, there is no debt. No investment was ever made. Every document the petitioner has submitted is fraudulent. My brother has never been involved with Apex Defense Systems in any capacity. He has filed this petition solely to sabotage my company because my success embarrasses him. That is a serious accusation. Do you have evidence to support it? I nodded to Patricia, who began distributing copies of our files. These are our authentic financial records, prepared by certified accountants and verified through annual audits. Here is the forensic report on the documents submitted by the petitioner, showing they were created less than a week ago using templates inconsistent with standard business agreements. And this timeline tracks my brother's public statements about my company over the past 8 years, illustrating a consistent pattern of dismissal and hostility. Vincent jumped to his feet. This is absurd. She's my sister. I have every right to collect the debt she owes me. What debts? I asked, calm and deliberate. State the date of the alleged loan. Name the bank account the funds were transferred from. Produce a single piece of evidence that survives scrutiny. He had none. There was no proof, only greed and malice masquerading as legal claims. Judge Holloway reviewed the materials for 20 minutes. The courtroom was silent. Vincent's lawyer looked like he wanted to vanish. My parents had abandoned their theatrics, replaced by the dawning recognition that events were spiraling completely out of their control. Finally, the judge spoke. I have examined all materials submitted by both parties. The forensic analysis is conclusive. Metadata clearly shows the petitioner's documents were created recently, not years ago as claimed. The defendant's financial statements demonstrate a company with substantial assets and no outstanding debt to the petitioner. She fixed Vincent with a sharp gaze. Mr. Moretti, this petition is dismissed. But this isn't the end of your involvement with this court, Judge Holloway said, her tone sharp. Submitting a fraudulent bankruptcy petition is a federal offense. I am referring this matter to the U.S. Attorney's Office for investigation into potential perjury and fraud. Vincent's face drained of color. Your Honor, there's been a misunderstanding, he stammered. There is no misunderstanding, the judge replied firmly. You submitted forged documents. You claim debts that don't exist. You attempted to force a legitimate, thriving company into bankruptcy through deception. She removed her glasses and leaned slightly forward. Are you aware that interfering with the Department of Defense contractor can carry additional federal charges? The government views any action that jeopardizes national security assets very seriously. National security? It's just my sister's small tech company, Vincent muttered. Your sister's company provides critical cybersecurity infrastructure for the U.S. military, the judge said. Sabotaging it isn't merely fraud. It could constitute a national security risk. Turning to me, she added, Miss Santos, I apologize for the court's time being wasted by this frivolous filing. Your company's reputation should not suffer due to these baseless claims. The record will reflect the fraudulent nature of this petition. Thank you, Your Honor. Case dismissed, I said. The courtroom erupted in quiet chaos. Court officers approached Vincent and his lawyer regarding the criminal referral. My parents tried to slip out quietly, but I caught my father's gaze as he reached the door. His expression was impossible to read. Perhaps shame, perhaps anger, perhaps just the disbelief of seeing his plan unravel completely. Mr. and Mrs. Moretti, I said evenly. I assume you were aware of this? Dad turned toward me. Gabriella, this was Vincent's idea. You were in the gallery, nodding along while he tried to destroy my company. Don't pretend you weren't involved. Helping whom? I asked. Your son commit federal crimes? Or yourselves feel better about being wrong about me for 8 years? Mom stepped forward. We didn't know it would go this far. We thought the company was struggling. Vincent said what he wanted to believe, I replied. And you chose to believe him because admitting the truth about me was too hard. I gathered my files. The $89 million contract? Gabriella, I'm done, I said firmly. Whatever happens to Vincent legally is his problem. Whatever justifications you tell yourselves at night are yours. But do not contact me again. Don't pretend you're my family. Family doesn't try to bankrupt each other with forged documents. I walked out of the courthouse without looking back. The federal investigation moved swiftly. Vincent's lawyer, facing potential disbarment, cooperated fully. He disclosed that Vincent had approached him with the scheme, claiming Apex was failing and needed to be shut down before it could embarrass the family. The lawyer admitted negligence, having trusted his client's assertions without verification. But the primary fraud rested with Vincent. Charges were filed within 6 weeks. Bankruptcy fraud, perjury, and attempted interference with a government contractor. Vincent faced up to 15 years in federal prison. My father used his connections and substantial resources to secure a plea deal, reducing the sentence to 3 years. Vincent would serve time in a minimum security facility, lose his position at the family business, and carry a federal felony conviction for life. The dealership chain survived, but Dad had to step back from day-to-day operations. The reputational damage of having a son convicted of federal fraud made him toxic to high-end clients. Last I heard, he was consulting while younger managers ran the business. 6 months after the trial, Mom sent a letter. The letter was overflowing with excuses and hollow sentiments. We never intended for things to go this far. Families should forgive each other. Surely you can understand our point of view. I didn't reply. Apex Defense Systems marked its 10th anniversary last month. The company had grown to 156 employees. Our Department of Defense contracts had expanded to $340 million over the next 5 years. We opened a second facility in Colorado, and we're planning a third in Texas. The Wall Street Journal ran a follow-up article titled "The Defense Startup That Survived a Family Sabotage Attempt." I gave a single carefully crafted interview about the bankruptcy case, focusing on the legal lessons rather than the family drama. When asked why I thought my brother had acted as he did, I said simply, "Some people cannot stand being wrong. They'd rather destroy something successful than admit they misjudged it." "Do you have any relationship with your family now?" the journalist asked. "I have an excellent relationship with the family I built. My employees, my partners, my husband, the people who believed in me when I had nothing but a garage and an idea. My biological family made their choice. I made mine." The interview ended there. Some questions require no further answer. Last week, I received a note from my sister Carla. She had always remained on the periphery of the family drama, too absorbed in her social ambitions to notice mine. But apparently the scandal had damaged her standing in her precious social circles. People whispered about her brother, the felon, her parents, the enablers. "I know you probably don't want to hear from any of us," she wrote. "But I wanted you to know I never agreed with how they treated you. I was too cowardly to say anything, but I always believed you would prove them wrong." It was a half-hearted apology, laced with self-interest. She was trying to position herself as the sister who had quietly supported me all along. I wrote back a single sentence. "Support offered in silence when it could have mattered is merely complicity. But thank you for the letter." I meant it. I didn't forgive her, but I acknowledged the gesture. Growth begins somewhere. 3 months ago my daughter was born. Her name is Elena, after my grandmother, the only Moretti who ever believed in me. She passed away before Apex reached its potential, but on her deathbed, she told me she knew I would succeed. I hold Elena in the nursery I built in my own home, a house purchased with money I earned, in a neighborhood I chose far from the family that once tried to destroy me. I tell her stories about resilience and determination, about building things that matter, and about recognizing the difference between people who lift you up and those who try to tear you down. "Your grandmother and grandfather, my parents, won't be part of your life," I told her last night, even though she's too young to comprehend. "That isn't punishment, it's protection. You deserve to be surrounded by people who see your potential, not those who hope for your failure." She blinked at me with her newborn eyes, still learning to focus. "You're going to do incredible things, Elena. And when you do, I'll be your biggest champion." That's what family truly means. Not shared blood but shared belief. I placed her in her crib and watched her sleep. This tiny person would never know the family that rejected her mother, but she would know the family that chose her. That is more than enough. They had tried to drag me into bankruptcy court, expecting to finally prove I was the failure they had always claimed. Instead, they exposed themselves as frauds, in both literal and figurative terms. The judge recognized my company's name because we had built something worthy of recognition, worthy of protection, worthy of celebration. They had thought they were shutting down a humiliation. In reality, they tried and failed to destroy an $89 million success story. The courtroom was not their victory. It was their unmasking. Now, as Vincent serves his sentence and my parents fade into irrelevance, Apex Defense Systems continues to grow. Keep building. Keep proving that the only force stronger than family doubt is relentless personal determination.